Amelia Island has been one of the best kept secrets in the history of the United States, I believe.
There are stories of pirates arriving here and putting their masted schooners in our harbor, the jewel of Amelia Island.
It was once the back door to America because of the deep harbors that it had.
When you think about the history, it's the old world coming to the new world.
They definitely did bury treasure here. There's been accounts of people finding stuff all over this island.
A little kid was playing out making mud pies, and he dug up a can, and it had like $30,000 worth of gold coins in it.
You pick up something on the beach that's been laying there for over 300 years, you know that someone was here.
All the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, anybody has been here.
He would write these stories and introduce Amelia Island and Fernandina Beach to some of the wealthiest people in the world. And he would drive them to come back to Amelia Island in search of this lost treasure.
Love Amelia has been telling the island's story for a while, but we never knew this part of its hidden history. You could call it the real-life treasure island. The first stop in our exploration, the Amelia Island Museum of History.
Amelia Island is named after King George's daughter, Princess Amelia. Well, there was a gentleman that came through here by the name of Oglethorpe. And Oglethorpe knew of Princess Amelia and thought if he could connect with King George, he could probably have some funding for his ideas and his dream. So he said, I would like to name this island I found near to a place where I have a plantation and I'm building and expanding into what is called Georgia. And I would like to name it after your daughter. She is fair, she is beautiful. This island is perfect to have her namesake.
We have deep waterways here. And years ago, before man manipulated the waterways with jetties and things, you could sail completely around this island. You could sail all the way around with these galleons that pulled a 28-foot draft. But the deep water harbors is why they would come in here, and freshwater too. We have a lot and had a lot of freshwater springs on the north, central of the island and south of the island. And the French, the Spanish, and the English, they knew it. And they would come in here and service their ships. So these are natural trade routes. And the reason why I say natural trade routes, these are flowing currents, the Gulf Stream. So they would sail from Spain, they would come up into the Caribbean, land bridge over from Mexico into the Pacific because they traded with the Asians.
Wow.
One reason why they did that is because there was no tax on jewelry at the time. So they would take their raw bullion, have it smelted and turned into jewelry, and then bring it back to Spain. So then they would sail back this way, come down the coast of California and back to Mexico. Land bridge everything back across the Mexican peninsula into the Gulf of Mexico. So this is why piracy was so hot and heavy here in the Caribbean.
All those routes come together here, right? They all kind of lead.
Exactly. Well, the last place to get fresh water is Amelia
Before
Island.
you cross.
Before you made that turn to head back to Europe was Amelia Island. That's why it's always been a strategic harbor.
Because the port was so strategic, it was very attractive to conquerors. That's how the island achieved the unique distinction of being the only place in America to have been under 8 different flags.
8 different flags, or you can even look at it as 8 different sovereigns. The first being the French. They were the first ones to raise the flag. And from there, the Spanish came in. From the Spanish, we went to the Brits, the British flag. From the British flag, there was a period of what we call chaos period, and the flags went up and down and very quickly. The first flag was the Patriot flag. The second flag was the Green Cross flag. It also came down very quickly, and the next flag was the Mexican Revolutionary flag. Wasn't long before that flag was gone, and then basically we had the Confederate flag. After the Confederate flag of many years, then along came the American flag, which still flies today with many more stars on it.
Amelia Island was one of the major shipping ports for hundreds and hundreds of years. The pirates used it.
Yeah, so what about the pirates? Why was it so attractive for pirates?
The pirates came here years ago. Blackbeard's been through here. Lewis R. Reed. They go on and on and on.
Blackbeard had come in here several times. He was from South Carolina, and he was actually married to the governor's daughter. So Blackbeard traveled in and out of here quite often. There were a lot of famous pirates in here. Edward Teach, Jean Lafitte was in here, Anne Bonny. I mean, the list goes on and on. It was a big natural hub, and they would come in here. Plus, the Gulf Stream runs close, so they had to come right by here. So that whole area here all the way to South Florida and the Caribbean was a hub that they knew these merchant ships laden with treasure, tobacco, rum, all this stuff. They knew that they were there for the picking.
There are stories of pirates arriving here, and you could line up all the masted schooners and you could walk from one ship to the other. So the story goes.
This was a hub for piracy because of the lack of a garrison. The garrison had moved further south to St. Augustine, and so basically, you know, the pirates who are criminals are not going to hang out where the police station's at. The other big hot spot up and down this coast was in Nassau. Ironically, this is Nassau County, and they used to call this Nassau North, referring to the piracy like the Bahamas.
Rum has really become a very popular tiki item, and the great thing is it does have that pirate history behind it as well. Pirates and sailors in general, you know, the pay may not be steady, but the morale was always kept up by the spirits, and rum in particular. So, you know, it has a history in terms of a practical sense, and then it certainly has all the allure and folklore that went around with the high seas and piracy in general during those days.
Ah, the golden era to bring people down from New York City. They could come down on luxury liners. You could come here, unload, and enjoy the wonderful riches that were here. It could be the weather that is much different from the cold. It could be the waters, which was rumored to have healing powers because they noticed the people here were relaxed and welcoming and full of life.
Palace is the oldest operating saloon in the state of Florida. There's been tons of people come through here. All the ship captains used to meet here and talk about their voyages, where they were going. All the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, anybody has been here in the Palace.
My great-grandfather's name is T. Howard Kelly. He was born on Amelia Island. He was a writer, and he would write beautiful stories about Amelia Island, and he would have them printed in the New York Times or the Florida Union or other big publications that he was working for at the time, like Esquire magazine. He would write these stories, and he would go out there and he would introduce Amelia Island and Fernandina Beach to some of the wealthiest people in the world, the Carnegies and families like that. And he would drive them to come back to Amelia Island in search of this lost treasure.
I met T. Howard Kelly once when I was a kid. I was about 12, 13 years old. I worked for his wife and the family for a little over 32, 33 years. He would tell us stories about the treasures that was here on the island.
These guys, you know, his group of millionaire buddies, they would gather up and have these treasure excursions on the island. They would come into the harbor here with their yachts and get together and come up with a strategic plan, and they would go out and barrage the jungles of Amelia. That's what they called it back then. Yeah, the
rich sportsmen to seek buried pirates'
That's right.
gold.
Hemingway was here.
Really?
Yeah, he was a writer. He was here, and he ended up in Key West. But he used to come here and see Mr. Howard.
They could come out of the hotels, hook up with the local people, go on excursions that allowed them to explore the island, explore the beaches, and hear tales of pirate treasures. And how shall I say, infamous people that may have left their mark here.
We're talking pre-World War II. So there's one thing that hasn't been invented yet, the metal detector. They were out scavenging rakes, hoes, intestinal fortitude. I mean, no insect spray, no snake chaps. No, they were brave back then, and they actually were successful at it. They found lots of treasure.
So when they would find these coins that would date back to the 1700s and the 1800s, it was only their assumption that it was pirate treasure.
Travis took us to Fort Clinch State Park, where nature and history are everywhere within its 1,100 acres. Here, you can feel what the island would have been like during the pirates' heyday and when T. Howard Kelly and his friends were exploring it.
Yeah, you can definitely see how you could hide a lot of stuff here.
And also lose it if you would have hit it and then come back and try to find it at another date.
Right.
It would have been impossible to find it.
And if you're one of the pirates that was hiding from the law, it would seem this would be a great place to just kind of disappear.
They'd never find you.
Pirates stay close to their treasure. One of the most famous pirates that ever been here was Captain William Kidd. And he actually wrote a poem talking about his treasure where he had buried it. And the poem goes that he buried 6 chests in as many places along the beautiful shores. So he talks about burying treasure here. And I'm guessing maybe some of the little islands in the river somewhere, but he talked about burying them along the coast of Amelia Island.
And this is the spot. This is where I truly think there's a lot of pirate activity. This makes the most sense.
Yeah, it really does, right? Because with the water and the...
It's almost like having a gas station off the side of the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always, had the theory that's been passed down from one generation to the next that they came in here through St. Mary's and would have gone straight out to one of these little barrier islands, or they would have come right here, just make a quick stop.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you had this whole canopy of jungles to be able to bury the treasures. And they would have probably gone deep into the forest and found that perfect tree. We gotta watch out for this spider here. Look at this. Ooh. Wow. What I always thought was fascinating is the stories you would hear about some of the big pirates and how they would have all of their crew offload the treasure, and they would walk into these beach hammocks and they would look for the perfect spot. And as soon as they found it, the main leader pirate would basically assign his men to start digging up the hole to put the actual chest in. So you find a big trunk that had some branches that were pretty sturdy coming out. That way you could mark on the tree, throw a rope over, drop your chest inside the hole, kill off the rest of your crew. You were the only one
Call it a day.
who knew it was there.
Yeah.
And then you were back out to Fernandina Beach to have a good time.
Wow.
Off the coast of Amelia, hidden pieces of 8. Maybe today is my lucky day.
It's only been recently that you start to realize it's not necessarily pirate treasure, but lost Spanish galleons that were wrecked at sea or were lost in hurricanes. And as those ships broke apart, all that heavy material would drop down into the bottom of the ocean floor, and over the last hundreds of years, it would push that debris to the island. It would push it on shore.
It's all up and down the beaches here. It's in the inland. There's people that find bits and pieces, and they be in their yards. They've dug up treasure. They've dug up all kinds of stuff.
These are shipwrecks that are known wrecks that are all along the coast. And just look at all the hundreds.
There's a ton of them, and they're all very close to Amelia
Yes, and
Island.
these are chartered wrecks, and I can promise you there are probably 10 times that many that we haven't found yet. That being said, we do have a real significant artifact. It's called a jeweler's furnace. It's the only one like it in the world, and I'll show it to you.
It's here. Let's take a look.
Here. This is it. Just a little iron, crude-looking little furnace, and that furnace would have been with the royal jewels, which is the Queen's dowry. And guess where it was found? On the south end of Amelia Island, almost 20 years ago, under about 3 foot of sand. And it would have been aboard a vessel of significant cargo, and the royal jeweler would have been accompanying the Queen's jewels on its way back to Spain. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yes. I've heard a rumor that you are like the real-life Indiana Jones.
I've heard that rumor too,
Really?
but I'm just an archaeologist.
Oh.
Underwater archaeologist.
Underwater archaeologist. Do you feel that within the near future you might be finding something cool?
I really do. I can't tell you. It's a secret. But
I think you have a good feeling.
I got a good feeling about it.
Growing up, being told about all these stories, I was always extremely passionate about the treasure. But as you get older and you go through life, you start to realize that the real treasure is the island. It's not about what you find or where you find it, it's about the people and the history that this island has. And this island has more history than anywhere else in the United States. And that's the true treasure.